Kia ora tata, ko Andrew Doubleday tēnei. Today we're looking at the lectionary reading for the Gospel for Sunday the 1st of May 2022. It's John's Gospel chapter 21 verses 1 through to 19, and I've entitled my little presentation The Restoration of Simon Peter. So let's pick up the narrative in verse 1. After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he showed himself in this way. Gathered there together was Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two others of his disciples. Simon Peter said to them, "I'm going fishing." They said to him, "We'll go with you." They went out and got into the boat. But that night they caught nothing. Just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. He said to them, "Cast the net to the other side, the right side of the boat, and you will find some." No, he didn't. Let's start this again. Kia ora tato, ko Andrew Doubleday tēnei. Today we're looking at the Gospel lectionary for Sunday the 1st of May. It's John chapter 21 verses 1 through to 19, and the title of my little address is The Restoration of Simon Peter. We pick the narrative up at verse 1. After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he showed himself in this way. Gathered there together was Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two others of his disciples. Simon Peter said to them, "I'm going fishing." They said to him, "We'll go with you." They went out and got into the boat. But that night they caught nothing. Just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach, but his disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, "Children, you have no fish, have you?" They answered him, "No." He said to them, "Cast the net to the right side of the boat, and you will find some." So they cast it. And now they were not able to haul it in because there were so many fish. The disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It's the Lord." When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on some clothes, for he was naked, and jumped into the sea. But the other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, only about 100 yards off. When they'd gone ashore, they saw a charcoal fire there, with fish on it and bread. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish that you've caught." So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore, full of large fish, 153 of them. And though there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." None of the disciples dared to ask him, "Who are you?" because they knew it was the Lord. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and did the same with the fish. This was now the third time that Jesus appeared to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to them, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my lambs." The second time he asked him, "Simon, son of Peter, son of John, do you love me?" He said to him, "Jesus, yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter felt hurt because he'd said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. Very truly, I tell you, when you were younger, you used to fasten your own belt and to go wherever you wished. But when you grow old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will fasten a belt around you and take you where you do not wish to go. He said this to indicate the kind of death by which he would glorify God. After this, he said to him, follow me. Now, both Luke and Paul in 1 Corinthians mention Jesus' appearance to Peter on the Resurrection Sunday. And this was a little time before. No details of that meeting are given. And it's as with Jesus' brother, his flesh and brother James, who was to become the leader of the Jerusalem church, also had a meeting with Jesus. These meetings are kept hidden from our eyes. One can only imagine the sense of shame and humiliation carried by both of these men. One for his repeated denials of his friend and Lord at that most crucial moment when he needed support, and the other for consigning his brother as a nutcase throughout his earthly ministry. And yet I can imagine the tenderness, the gentleness with which the risen Jesus ministers to each of them. None of that comes into our text today. In our text we see the next chapter in Simon Peter's journey. While Peter can now meet Jesus without a sense of shame, he is now reaffirmed in his present and in the future as the leader of the early church. That's what we see happening in this text. I want to suggest, though, that he's also not being oriented towards his future, he's also being given a new past. Now, this is, I think, is a remarkable insight, and it's not mine. The person from whom I heard it quite some years ago was one Darrell Johnson. Darrell's a Presbyterian minister who lectured for some years, still does, at Regent College in Vancouver. And as I was preparing this message, his name just went out of my head, and I just couldn't think of it. So I ended up having to Google it. It's one of these interesting matters of providence that as I did, I found not only his name at Regent College, but I also found a little video clip associated with his bio. And it was about this very issue. It's only 1.5 minutes long. And to make it easy, I managed to find the same thing on YouTube. So I've included a link below, and you can hear it in Darrell's own words and see what I'm about to share with you. So here we have Peter, and we have a number of the disciples in Galilee. They're not all there, a number of them are. And Peter, my sense, is getting frustrated. And he leaps up in the evening and announces, I'm going fishing. And their response is, well, we'll come with you. They're not all fishermen, probably half of them are. But why fishing? Well, it's what Peter knows, or what he knew. He'd spent most of his life out on this lake at night fishing. It's the one area of expertise in his life. He hasn't done it for a number of years probably, but he knows fishing and he knows the way of the Sea of Galilee. Darrell Johnson suggests that he may feel disqualified from everything else because of what had happened, because of his denial of Jesus, that he's not good for anything else. And so it's this that he returns to, because it's this that he knows. The scars of his own betrayal of Jesus, the psychic scars, are deep in him. And it's a past event that he's not able to get past. It continues to be a blockage. So here they are, They're out all night. The twilight has come, and they see a glow of a fire on the beach. And they head in. They've caught nothing. And Peter, James and John, who have been business partners, all know how to fish, and yet, as I said, they've come up empty-handed. There's a figure sitting in the shadows by the fire. He calls out, "Friends, have you caught anything?" No. That's just recorded as no. My hunch is it's a fairly grumpy no. "Throw your net out on the other side." They've heard this kind of thing before, so they do. And the net fills up. For the one we read is the disciple whom Jesus loved, who's never named, but my fairly settled conviction is it's the author of the Gospel, John. And I think that is a view shared by a great many. Others will have alternative views, but I think it's that. And I kind of imagine, wouldn't we all want to say that? The disciple whom Jesus loved. Wouldn't each of them wanted to have made that claim? So he immediately recognizes what's happened. He joins the dots and he says, "It's the Lord." The moment Peter hears it, he wraps his coat around him and he leaps into the water. It's not too far from the shore, about 100 yards, which actually is still not that close. But I imagine the beach has a fairly shallow kind of draft, and there's a gradual incline up to the beach. And so he's in the water and he heads for the shore. And as he comes out the other side, he sees Jesus. But between him and Jesus is a charcoal fire. And you may be sitting here thinking, well, so what? You know, he's cooking breakfast. There's got to be a fire. Yeah. But a charcoal fire is only mentioned one other place in Scripture. And that's in John 18, verse 18. And it's at a charcoal fire that Peter is warming himself in the high priest's house as the trial of Jesus is going on. And 3 times, standing by this charcoal fire, Peter is accused of being a friend of Jesus. He's accused of being a Galilean, and he absolutely denies it. He says, "I don't know the man." 3 times. And so here we are, not that much longer, a week or 2 later, and here he is again with a charcoal fire and Jesus across the other side of it. And whereas that first charcoal fire, 3 times he denies that he knows Jesus, now 3 times Jesus asks him, "Do you love me?" And 3 times Peter has to affirm his love for Jesus, his commitment to Jesus. And 3 times at each affirmation, "Lord, you know I love you," we hear Jesus' affirmations of him. "Feed my lambs, tend my sheep, feed my sheep." There's a kind of recommitting of Peter to the future, which is wonderful. But there's also a sense that Jesus is giving Peter a new past. I don't know what it's like for you, but I know for me that when I see something that reminds me of something else, it takes me back to that event. And this is the point I think that Darrell Johnson is making. I know it is that as Peter sees that charcoal fire, suddenly he's back where he was a week or 2 ago, denying Jesus. And the shame and the humiliation of that event crashes in on him. He cannot see a charcoal fire without remembering the horror of his own failure on that day and that most crucial few moments. What's Jesus doing here? Jesus is reframing it for him. Jesus is giving Simon Peter not just a new future, he's giving him a new past. So that from this moment forward, when Simon Peter sees a charcoal fire, and I presume it's not an uncommon thing, but when he sees a charcoal fire, he's no longer thinking about his moment of greatest weakness and failure. He's now seeing it reframed as a moment of grace, as a moment of restoration, as a moment of affirmation and love and empowerment to be the person that Jesus has called him to become. For Simon Peter, from now on, the sight of a charcoal fire will be a reminder to him that failure doesn't need to be fatal. It can be a springboard for growth, for new beginnings, for a fresh start. The reality is that we don't often recognize the gift in our failures. We fail to see so often how they've shaped our lives, sometimes for ill, but also sometimes for good. And Jesus here offers not just a new beginning, a new future. He also offers Simon Peter a new past. What a gift. And I want to suggest there's something in that is possible for each of us if we're able to reframe our own failures and see what God has and is still able to make of them, to turn them to good. God bless you.